Valley Lane's going 100 miles an hour.
Are you surprised?
No.
It's like a kid in a candy store.
Better understand my legal position.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order on our side of things, and just welcome the city of Garden City, your staff, council, mayor. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
And just to recap, we have microphones in the ceiling, so when you speak, please project a little bit. We want to make sure that folks online can hear us, so just be a little bit louder than normal. I'm not yelling, and I know that you guys aren't going to be yelling, but let's just be a little loud for the folks tuning in. Yeah, Mayor, anything you want to say?
No, just for the Garden City Council, we noticed this up as a special meeting, so if you don't mind, I'll call our meeting to order and have, can I call the roll?
Thank you. Councilmember Heller.
Present.
Councilmember Jacobs.
Here.
Council President Page.
Here.
Our Mayor Evans.
I'm here.
And for the record, Councilmember Jorgensen is absent.
Keisha.
Although we expect everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. And so we've got our agenda out on the tables for you guys, but we're going to kick things off with a history of ACHD. That's something that we've heard would be helpful and just kind of level set like how we've been created, provide some context about the organization, and I'll turn it over to the director.
Madam President, thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, commissioners, welcome to the Ada County Highway District. It's great to have you all here. And we are going to go quickly through a brief history for all of you, so you can get to know us just a little bit better as we move forward in operations. Stacy, please.
I turn it on here.
First off, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the commission and President Pickering. Thank you for your tremendous partnership. We live here in Garden City, and so we are very, very thankful for the support you give us on a day-to-day basis. And Mr. Mayor, thank you for your leadership on all operations when it comes down to the Ada County Highway District. Next, please. This is what we're going to talk about very quickly across the board and such. Next, please. A little bit about what I call ACHD 101. We were formed in 1971 by an act of the legislature after a vote of the public. They were very concerned about the amazing number of potholes that were not being filled and how monies were being distributed across Ada County. So they formed us. We have, as you see here, 5 elected officials who have an amazing amount of responsibility when it comes down to ordinance operations and all the things that they oversee. We are a rather large group, and such as we have over 420 individuals, great professionals assigned to the district, and we have an amazing economic impact when it comes down to operations, not only within Ada County, but in Idaho across the board. We are also responsible for a whole lot of stuff, and I'll share that with you here shortly, but we are the second largest highway operation in the state, only behind ITD, and all the different things we do. And as you can see from here, we do own and operate on behalf of the taxpayers, 3 headquarters, a whole bunch of different stuff, lots of equipment, and we run something called Commuter Ride. I hope you're all familiar with that. It is the nation's largest van pool operation, started in 1976, I think it was, with 2 vans loaned from Sun Valley off-season. And we've grown to an operation today where we're providing 85 routes with a whole bunch of customers that are very happy of what we do across the board. We also, the commission operates and owns the largest stormwater system in Idaho. And I know that you all have been intimately involved with a lot of details for that. Next, please, Stacy. Well, there it is, $3+ billion of assets, and what we'd like to share with everybody is that on your ACHD infrastructure. You go from here to Washington DC and back and still have time to travel in Idaho up and down based on the length of mileage that we are responsible for the taxpayers. Next, please. We also give back to the community on a consistent basis. Last year, we sponsored our annual golf tournament. We sponsored the First Tee of Idaho, all about children. And we were able to hand them a check up to $130,000. This year, the team has selected Faces of Hope as our next event, and we've spanned the spectrum when it comes down to who we support, from Operation Warm Heart to the Idaho Guard Reserve Family Support Fund, to the Wyatt Warriors, to Camp Rainbow Gold, the Children's Society, the Women's and Children's Alliance. We choose these on a rotational basis every year by the staff, and everything that we do is volunteer. There's one penny that comes to pay salaries or whatever here at the district. So we're excited about this upcoming event. And Mr. Mayor, I'm sure you'll form a golf team, and Commissioner Pickering will be reaching out to you shortly. Next, please. We also are involved with something called the Idaho Patriot Thunder. And this is the Northwest's largest military family charity motorcycle event to date. Last year, it was the 12th. The 13th will be 16 July. Mr. Mayor, I believe ISP told me that several of your officers will be participating this year, so we're great to have them on board. But these raise funds for military families here in Idaho. All the money stays in Idaho. And at the end of the day, again, it's all by volunteers and such. Next slide, please. So, these are our priorities. And as you can see, the first one is our people. We invest heavily in the success of our tremendous professionals here at the Ada County Highway District. And it pays great dividends to the 502,000 customers that we serve on a day-to-day basis. We're already very focused in how we get better and efficient, effective operations across the spectrum. This year's focus is innovate to become better. How do we innovate to ensure that we're doing everything possible to provide every bit of dollar that the taxpayers loan us to put into operations here for all of Ada County? And of course, safety. What we do here is inherently dangerous. It really is. It can be the staff, it can be the operation, doesn't matter. We have a lot of big equipment, a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of drivers out there. So we work very hard to ensure the safe operation of all users, not only the staff, but throughout Ada County. Next, please. This is what we do. The commission, council members have a very unique role. They are regionally focused. They have to wear a regional hat on operations, and they make determination decisions on a regional basis that can best support the majority, not all, of Ada County residents. But at the very bottom there, our commissioners are honest brokers. When it's all said and done, they get to make some tough decisions like you do, and we get to weigh a lot of options back and forth to come up with the policies and strategies that we as the staff will execute at that time. Okay. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not fun, as I'm sure it is for all elected officials. Next slide, please. Well, this is how we do it. It begins with our strategic plan, which our planning and projects team, maintenance team, and operations look out 20 plus years into the future based on inputs we're getting from different staffs, our elected officials, other officials in the different 6 cities and Ada County, and sometimes from the legislature and sometimes from the federal government as to how we start putting things together to support Ada County. That then goes into our capital improvement plan, which is a 20-year look. And those are the large list of projects that each city believes they need to have done as they continue to fulfill their vision of how their city will look going into the future. It then goes into something we're working on right now, which is very important to all of you, and we will have a presentation shortly, specifically geared to Garden City on the integrated 5-year work plan. This is where planning meets dollars and such. And when we merge those two together and we bring to the commission, then they take the dollars available, projects that have been lined up and coordinated with your staffs, and they put it together, and we put out this list called that, and that's when we move forward, when we start executing dollars and putting them into the infrastructure that benefits all users here in the county. And again, we're very proud of that last statement. I truly believe we have the world's greatest communications team on the planet, and we work very hard to integrate, be it at meetings, be it 101s, be it special meetings that our citizens or commissioners call, where we sit down with customers and answer the questions and provide insights as to what we do. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of where we are today. This is our revenue and where it comes from for 2023. As you can see, our largest revenue source, property tax, state highway users funds, impact fees, and a little bit of registration fees thrown in here. That's how that pie is divided up each year, and those are the things that the commissioners get to deal with on a case-by-case, dollar-by-dollar basis as to how we will fund operations going into the next year and the year after that. Next slide, please. This year's expense budget, $184 million plus change across the board. And these are the areas where the commission has directed us to spend those dollars. As you can see, majority in capital projects, a large majority in maintenance, a large majority in development operations, because that's what we do. And the more money that we can spend in preventive maintenance operations provides less impact to the taxpayers long term, so we don't have to go in and rebuild a lot of things going forward. So I'm sure one of your favorite seasons like mine is chip seal operations. It's coming here shortly and such, but it pays great dividends in the longevity of our infrastructure. Next slide, please. This is what the taxpayers own right now, and this is what we work for them in. As you can see, there's one consistent theme along this slide, and growing across the board. We continue to expand in tasks and resources and requirements almost on a monthly basis with the tremendous growth that all of you are seeing here, not only in Ada County, but in Idaho. Next, please. This is a draft. It is not ready to go out yet and stuff. We are working this, but I thought what we'd show you is specifically Garden City and where we garnered money and where we executed money in 2022. And what's very interesting about this is that, as you can see, the money that was generated through Garden City is less than the monies and the infrastructure or dollars that we spent in Garden City. How do we do that? The commissioners have a regional perspective on how they can look at different operations and where dollars can come from across the board. Next, please. And I always say that, 1 year is nice, but you look at trends. You look at trends hard. And as you can see, over the last couple of years in 2022, the commission has done a very good job of allocating resources into projects and operations and maintenance for our 6 cities and Ada County. Next slide, please. So what's on the horizon next? We'll talk about this shortly, but as you can see right now, over almost 600 projects in the scope with about $904 million allocated or planned to be allocated against those projects to answer the requests that all of our city partners have. Next. We are very excited about this and such. This is where we are expanding to provide more service, quicker service, more effective service to all of Ada County. As a matter of fact, in June, we'll start turning dirt in our traffic operations center off of Franklin. This is a huge deal to provide better support for the community. The USIC operations, which you're going to get a presentation on here shortly, so I'm not going to hit the hype, and I go into details, is up and running, as well as that Apple Way facility where we're moving our Adams maintenance complex to that facility across the board. And Jennifer will give you some details about that here in just a little bit. Next slide, please. So with that, that was a very quick welcome to the Ada County Highway District. Here's who we are and such. So Commissioner Pickering, if there are no questions. I knew it.
Chair, then, Madam Chair.
Mayor Evans.
So in a snapshot, what's the condition of our bridges in Ada County?
We have our bridge structure, if I'm not mistaken, 99% are in good or better condition. We work those very, very hard.
And the legislature's appropriation is going to help us, or not so much?
I'm not going to go through what the legislation is going to do. I'll leave that to the elected officials. But our plan that we've continued to execute every year focuses on those bridges to make sure we maintain those in a good or better condition. I do know, and we're very blessed here, we have great resources, we have a tremendously talented team. There are other parts of the state that are struggling, and I think that a lot of those dollars, when it comes to those specific things, may be allocated somewhere else, but that'll be a determination that they do later.
Are you referring to like the 100 million surplus, like the 100 million that the governor allocated, or?
You know, they've made it, part of the legislative effort was to enhance or maintain an enhanced transportation expenditure. And it's a little messy, maybe too messy for this discussion at the moment, but in general terms.
I will assure you, Mr. Mayor, that we're in the fight on that.
Could I take just a moment of privilege if I could? I have council members that don't know the commissioners or maybe just met you all. And I was wondering if you would allow just maybe a 90-second background so we know kind of who each other are. Some of us have been around the track a few times, but I've got at least 2, maybe 4 council members that, Commissioner Gold, we don't know what prompted you to run, and briefly what your background is.
All right.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
President, Mr. Mayor. Well, hello to everybody who I have not met quite yet. I'm Commissioner Gold, and I was elected in November for District 3. And so just sworn in January, the newest member of the commission. I previously served on Eagle City Council. I live in Boise now, and I am really passionate about advocating for our community's livability. So that is what prompted me to run for this office, and having a land use perspective like you all, and wanting to advocate for better alignment on land use and transportation. So.
Bill Jacobs, and so I'm new to this Garden City Council as well, but I was elected in 21, so I've got a full year under my belt and learning, kind of learning the ropes. I'm currently a general manager at Far West Landscape, and so that's where I'm the general manager there. I've owned businesses in town, and worked at larger companies like HP. So I've lived in the valley for almost 30 years. In terms of running for office, I was asked to consider running at the time, and so I looked at. I've always been interested in public service. I do a lot of volunteering outside of work at the YMCA and the Morrison Center, things like that. So I opted. I come from a family of my in-laws. My father-in-law was a mayor and an elected official for 20 years, and so. He encouraged me to run and be really active in the city, and Garden City was actually attracted me just because it's a little smaller, more intimate city than trying to be a council member from a larger city like Boise. So I'm really enjoying myself, and it's been a very good experience.
I'm Dave McKinney. I'm an attorney. I run my own practice as a patent attorney. Been doing that for 25 years. I've worked for several firms in addition to solo practice. Before becoming an attorney, I was a civil engineer and actually worked for a consulting engineering firm here in the Valley, and did a number of projects for ACHD. So with that background, a number of years ago, I thought, I ought to try to get involved. Probably something I could do for my community. At the time, we lived in West Jordan, Utah, and so I applied for a position on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that was really a good experience. I was there for about 6 years, 7 years, something like that. And right through the housing crisis, when the Planning and Zoning Commission went from being overworked to having nothing to do. But then after returning to Idaho, I thought, you know, there ought to be something that I can do for my community. So back in 2017, I think it was, I ran for Meridian City Council, was not successful, but got appointed to the Meridian Transportation Commission. And then in 2020, when Sarah Baker decided to step down from the ACHD Commission, I decided to run for that position. And it's a perfect fit with my background, with both a legal background and an engineering background, highway and transportation and bridges and so on, have been, you know, things that I've dealt with as a professional. So it's a good fit, and I'm very glad to be here. I'm enjoying what I do, and think that we make a positive contribution to the community.
Madam Chairman, Mr. Mayor, my name is James Page. I am currently the president of the Garden City Council. I was elected to the council in 2019 following an appointment to fill a vacancy of council member Bill Jacobs. Before that, I applied for and was appointed to a position as a commissioner for Garden City's planning and zoning, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Garden City's been experiencing quite a bit of growth, as many of our areas in our valley have, and I was interested in being a part of that and steering and guiding Garden City's image as it moves on and moves forward. I've lived in Ada County for over 30 years and in Garden City since 2007. I'm an attorney and a small business owner.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Alexis Pickering. I'm the current commission president, and I was elected in 2020, and I serve District 2, which is the majority of Garden City, so I'm a proud commissioner representing Garden City's interests, and I ran to, it's hard to imagine, like just 2.5 years ago, what the landscape was like, but just really to partner with the cities, elevate community voice, and have a more collaborative perspective on the commission, to really usher in the right development and growth and transportation infrastructure that our communities are asking for. So my background is in public health. I have a graduate degree from Boise State, and I work with multi-sector partners to make communities healthier.
John Evans, I've been the mayor, I'm in year 17 as Garden City's mayor. Served on the council 10 years prior to that. On the planning commission 4 years prior to that. I can't add that much up, so. But my background is heavy construction, basically. I'm in the development business. I make my living in the development business. And I used to do all my own underground work, sewer, water, roads, all of that. So it's been quite a ride serving in Garden City. Seen some dramatic changes over my tenure here, and the interaction with the highway district is a critical component to the success of a city, any city. And we have a unique set of circumstances in Ada County where we have a countywide highway district, and managing the wants and needs of 7 beneficiaries of the district services, I know can be challenging. So I appreciate the relationship. I think personal relationships are pretty critical to any success, and I'm happy that we were able to get together and get a little background on each other as we go forward. So, thanks, Jim.
Very good. Jim Hansen, I'm the quiet one on the commission, and
He's saying that as a joke.
served on the commission now just over 10 years. I've been in Boise since, let's see, 1984, before 2 commissioners were even born. And then served in the legislature from 88 to 94, and served representing a district in Southeast Boise. Then I worked in the nonprofit sector and did a lot of work in, I'm actually trained as a lawyer, did work in mediation and other things. And I was encouraged to run in 2012 because most people don't realize this is actually a government that you can elect representatives from your neighborhood to serve. The area I represent is the Central Bench and Southeast Boise. So I'm very, very familiar with that. It's an area I represented in the legislature. And I'm real committed to making sure people connect with government, make it accessible, that they can have a say into what their neighborhood looks like in terms of transportation. Of course, this unique thing where there's this sort of three parts. There's the citizens, and then they got the general purpose government and the transportation government that owns all the roads through there, so that it makes it a little more complex, as you've discovered, and to try and accomplish things with two elected bodies trying to do the similar things in their neighborhood. So, I've enjoyed it very much, and but I'm not planning to run in the next election, so that somebody with a little less gray hair gets to serve in my behalf.
Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, Teresa Jorgensen. I am on the City Council for Garden City. I was appointed actually in 2020 to fill a vacancy, and then ran a successful campaign in 21. Therefore, what is that, 2 years? It feels like a lifetime. It's been very, very exciting. I became involved because at the time, there were, as many of you may recall, there was a lot of discussion in changing direction regarding police and the strategies within the cities, and that was a topic that I'm pretty passionate about. And I am an Idaho native, so for those of you that know the history of Garden City, reducing the police force in Garden City is not a good idea, and therefore that was the driving force behind my interest. And I had been serving as our HOA president, which is a thankless job, and this is much easier. So as far as public service, I pick this all day, every day.
I'm Kent Goldthorpe. I'm a retired salesman and painfully shy by nature. I've been in the commission since 2015, and that's about all I have to say, except my wife said, make sure that you contribute something to the meeting. So I will let you know that your Dairy Queen is selling blizzards for 85 cents.
Appreciate that, yeah.
Russ Heller. I'm retired from Boise School District, where I taught for 26 years and moved into central administration for another 15 years. I've lived in Boise, the Boise area, since 1970, and Boise's North End for 28 years, and Garden City now for 16, 17 years, I guess. I was appointed by the mayor to my seat on the council, vacant by Pam Beaumont, and I'm enjoying the experience and learning a great deal about the management and government of a city. I'm working as a volunteer in a number of organizations and serve a number of boards. The local boards are City Club of Boise and Frank Church Institute at Boise State University, where I also work with the School of Public Service and Political Science and History departments in staging conferences for educators. I work also with the state judiciary and the federal judiciary in staging conferences for and institutes for educators during the summer. So I spent most of my morning, in fact. I enjoyed meeting all of you and look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Madam President, for that indulgence.
No problem. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so next up we have traffic mitigation for 42nd Street in Adams. Mr. Ryan Head.
Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Mayor, Council, Commission. It's a pleasure to visit with you today. I am Ryan Head, the Deputy Director of Development and Technical Services. A few months ago, we had the pleasure to visit with the Mayor, Councilmember Jorgensen, as well as some of your police force, as well as some of the school leadership in the Adams and 42nd area. Turn this on. I just have one slide, so that should be quick and easy. But there were 5 different things that the community had identified as some concerns that they wanted ACHD to take a look at. The first of those was to look in recent years, Answer Charter School here expanded their parking lot to connect to 43rd Street, and at that time they built a crossing of 43rd Street and asked that we look at relocating from one side of their parking lot to another, primarily because when the interaction that the current situation causes with the vehicles and the children. We took a look at that. At that time, the conversation was, well, we don't really have a good way to do this. We did some thinking and looked at our ACHD has what's called a Safe Sidewalk program, which improves sidewalks primarily for accessibility and access purposes. But we believe that was the way we can do this, and so we have that program to occur as soon as school gets out this summer. The second was to improve the school zone signage on 43rd Street. Currently, the speed limit's the same as what a school zone would have, and so the signage tends to be more minimal in those circumstances. But we were able to identify some added signage, and that's already in place. The third was to relocate a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. This is when you push the button, it flashes to let people know that people are crossing. We installed one at 42nd Street a few years ago. The request was that be relocated to 43rd Street. Answer Charter School and Future Public School wanted to change their walk routes, and that would be in that location. We'd originally selected 42nd because of the Boys and Girls Club and the park. However, the proximity to Veterans Memorial Parkway creates some conflicts at that location. And so the request was that we look at relocating that. Well, there's 2 major projects under construction as a place of major growth within Garden City, as you all know, at 42nd and 43rd. And so we would be able to do that. We're interested in making that improvement at the city's request from an operational perspective and to support the schools. However, we need to wait for some construction to wrap up because some of the corners aren't even there right now because of that construction. So we anticipate a lot of that construction beginning to wrap up this summer, and so we can take a look at getting that in place. One other request we got was to do some time restrictions on left turns. This is at 42nd and 43rd and Adams from both directions. Because of the backups that happen from Veterans Memorial Parkway, there tends to be, it becomes very difficult and challenging to make a left turn in those locations. And so during the school drop-off or pickup time in the afternoon, the request was that we installed no left turns, right in, right out signage there. The city police offered to make sure that was well enforced because it's just putting up a sign doesn't necessarily change everyone's behavior. A lot of people like to ignore signs, but we were able to get those up within that week and are excited to see that and continue to hear how that compliance is going. The last was to remove the stop signs on the Adams legs of Adams and 44th Street, so up in the top corner there. I guess history has it that 44th Street was the connection up the bench and to into Boise back before Veterans Parkway went up to Curtis. And so that was kind of a key location, and those signs had been there. Well, those signs have been there since that point, and we don't normally go and take out stop signs. That's not a normal request we get. So, but the thought was that that would improve the drop off and pick up times, the congestion that builds up in that area. We're in the middle of we said pending construction at that time. I checked with my team and they're already doing the analysis to verify that we can do that, and we may be even able to get that removed before the construction's completed. The thought was waiting for some of the traffic to normalize, but we think that it's probably going to be worthwhile that we can get that done. So that's just my quick update. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you had any other things you wanted to report on this topic.
I don't. I just was aware of the response to the group's request to the district, and I wanted the council to hear it from you all and see this presentation. So, we think that's going to help that intersection. We've kind of got a little bit of a perfect storm in that area with the schools, with UPS, with UPS. They don't allow their fleet drivers to make those left turns going out to Chinden, so we get a lot of right-hand turn traffic at 42nd onto Adams, and then it's a short block to the signalized intersection, so it just gets clogged up there. And of course, you got the Boys and Girls Club down at the river. We've got all the new construction, new housing there, and you know, I'm glad we're able to do this because there's an employee at Fishers that's driving me nuts if we don't do something. Oh, Teresa. So, but seriously, much appreciate the response and responsiveness. So, council, do you have any questions?
Mr. Mayor and Madam Chair, Mr. Head, I did want to compliment you, and I do appreciate the responsiveness. It has had an impact. Unfortunately, I'm not usually leaving the office in time to witness the improvement, but I have had reports, and people are pleased with the right-hand only turn during certain times. It is helping clear. I did coordinate some time with Chief Allen to ensure that there was some enforcement happening to raise awareness. And so again, I want to express my gratitude. And I'm very excited for the construction to wrap up and get that crosswalk moved, because that continues to be a high concern, seeing a lot of children trying to cross in that area where it is just very, very congested as things back up at Veterans Memorial Parkway in Adams. And I don't know if we'll be talking about potential resolutions for that with Jenna's presentation, or
well, we're a little time constrained today, but so I'm not sure we'll get to that. But we can meet again sometime.
Maybe at your turf.
Yes. Yeah.
but much appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks to everybody's efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving right along, we're gonna go into the integrated 5-year work plan and our RAISE grant update. So Ms. Christy Inselman, welcome, welcome. That's not where I started. It's wanting to jump. I am not there. Well, there's a title slide that's not. Oh, did you delete my title slide? Harsh. Now they won't know what we're talking about. Just kidding. So, welcome everybody. So my name is Christy Inselman. I'm the planning supervisor over in our long range planning division. And partway through this presentation, Brian McCarthy is also going to join me to talk to you guys about a very specific project, and that's the RAISE grant projects. But I'll start, and kind of the purpose of today's presentation is to kind of give you a very brief, high-level overview of the integrated 5-year work plan, what goes into it, and then as well as kind of go through projects that we currently have identified and some things we're looking at for this next update. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but we actually we had a little hiatus between the adoption of the 22-26 integrated 5-year work plan, and we are now firmly in the development of. Sorry. Oh, my schedule is also missing, Ken. There was another slide, but what all's in here?
It's what you sent to Director Wong.
Right, I sent the full presentation. Okay, well, there's also a schedule of where we're currently at. Here, I'll hold it up. Is it only those 2 slides that are currently in there, Ken? Yeah, we're missing several. That's very odd. Okay, so I sent it to you, Ken, as well. I emailed you the presentation.
Right, but the director said he
Oh, he may have had a reduced version. My apologies. So I'll just talk about the schedule. Or you can pull. Oh, look, it's a title slide. I love it. Okay. We already talked about that. Okay, here's the schedule where we're currently at. It's a snapshot of the integrated 5-year work plan. You can see the grayed out areas between October and into March. So we have completed our initial outreach, which includes public partner agency outreach, asking for project requests. It was quite the lengthy, I'm sure Jenna loved the gigantic list that we sent her. We received our public outreach this year. We did a different outreach where we did an interactive map to the public. We received 1,350 individual project requests across the entire Ada County, not just Garden City. Don't have where to turn yet. And so now we are currently, if it'll let me go.
No. Here we go. You just gotta say next.
Okay, so we are now firmly ensconced in the prioritization and programming section of the development of the integrated 5-year work plan. That will happen May through into June, where basically Margaret and myself will lock ourselves in our offices for the next few months to do the very large effort of prioritization and then programming the projects for this next iteration. Not ready. Don't jump ahead. So we also have highlighted there the initial draft release of the integrated 5-year work plan, the 24-28. So we'll hold a public information meeting with the public. This will go out to all of our partner agencies, this initial draft, where our partner agencies have another opportunity to review what we've done, provide feedback to our commission and the public as well. So it'll be done through an interactive map where they can go onto individual projects and provide direct feedback. Once we receive that, we'll go back to our commission as well. Our budget is scheduled for adoption on August 23rd, which really informs our integrated 5-year work plan for funding purposes. And then we would look for adoption on September 27th of the integrated 5-year work plan. So this is just a flow chart. It's a brief outline of what goes into the development of the integrated 5-year work plan. It's a year-long process that's involved in creating this each year. From the extensive public outreach, we do project scoping, project prioritization, programming with an eye on geographic equity, available funding. We look to our allocation methodology, and it's easy to see there's a lot that goes into the development of the integrated 5-year work plan. So we're about at the midway step of that overall process. We do, where we select projects, it's very multi-layered. It doesn't just come from one location. It comes from our partners, it comes from adopted plans, it comes from the public, it comes from our commission. So it's very extensive. We have a prioritization process. Our slight hiatus that I talked about was so that we could reevaluate our prioritization methodology, and your wonderful staff were partners in that effort. They were heavily involved in that. And so that's our next step, is putting it through that process. Okay, next. And so the next few slides, I'm going to highlight some of the Garden City projects that are currently programmed in the integrated 5-year work plan, and with a little bit of an error on we're still programming, so some of these may change as far as where they're at in the plan. Christy, can you describe what programmed means.
Programs mean they're currently in the 22-26 integrated 5-year work plan. So those are projects that we already have identified, they're moving forward through the process. We either have, so you have basically 3 major components to a project being done. You've got the design phase of a project, you've got the right-of-way acquisition where we need to potentially buy property in order to do the project, and you have construction phase. There's other phases that go into that if we have a concept level. Those are the 3 main. So if it's in the integrated 5-year work plans, means that some component of that project was identified in a year. So we identified either a design, right-of-way, or construction year of these projects in the 22-26, and so they will remain as we develop the 24-28 and hopefully continue to move forward. So if we didn't have a right-of-way year, maybe we can identify this one this year or construction year. So major roadway and intersection projects in Garden City, we have the State and Pierce Park project. So that project includes both the intersection as well as State Street, Pierce Park to Collister, so that roadway segment. Those will be constructed at the same time. And we have that slated for construction in 25, rolling a little bit into 26. These bigger projects always take a little bit more than a year. And then we have State and Glenwood identified. That one we don't have a year just yet. And then we have a major bridge project. We have the Bogart Lane Bridge, and we have that one in design in 25, right-of-way 26, and construction in 27. And then our community programs project, so there's 11 that are listed here. So all of these you can see, we have, I just put the design year up there yet. We don't have the right-of-way year just identified, I'm still programming. So you're getting a little early sneak peek on what we're looking at for the 24-28. So we got several projects, 32nd, 33rd, 34th, 35th. The Arnie Lane one, we finished the concept study for that last year, so that one will go into the next phase, which is design. We have several projects on Clay and Riverside, and we have the crossing project at Chinden and Coffee. And then I'm going to turn over a few minutes for Brian McCarthy. He's going to update you on the RAISE grant projects, and then I'll wrap it up at the end.
So thank you. As Christy mentioned, my name is Brian McCarthy. I'm a project management supervisor at ACHD, and I specialize in the federal aid projects. So here to give you a brief update on the RAISE grant. RAISE stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. The Access to Opportunity is the ACHD overall project name that contains multiple components, which we'll get into on the next slide. So this past fall, the ACHD was notified that we were recipients of the $5 million planning grant for the Access to Opportunity project. The overall project in the RAISE grant program is a heavy focus on pedestrian and bicycle connectivity and safety improvements. So the projects that we have listed here and incorporated in the Access to Opportunity project focus heavily on those components for the pedestrian and bike safety. It's a $5 million grant that was awarded to ACHD. That grant has a 20% local match. So what that means is the local contribution will be 20% in addition to that $5 million. So the overall project grant and design component that we have is going to be over $6 million going towards project development for these 25 projects. As noted, 11 of these components of the Access to Opportunity project are located in Garden City. Currently, we are working with Federal Highways and the Idaho Transportation Department on executing the draft grant agreement. So it'll be a 3-party agreement with the federal money going through the Idaho Transportation Department, which is typical for federal aid projects. We were told when we were awarded the grant that it will take some time to get the grant agreement in place. We're at the local level working with the FHWA local offices. We've had comments and feedback from both ITD and FHWA. However, now it has to go to Washington, D.C. for them to ultimately review and process that agreement. And we were told that is potentially what could take some additional time on getting the agreement in place. So we have 2023 listed, a whole fiscal year essentially on getting that agreement in place with the goal of starting project development and consultant selection at the start of 2024. The design process and project development, we're looking for, we'll have about 3 years to execute the entirety of the project based on the restraints put in the agreement and the funding requirements. The right-of-way and construction phase are still to be determined for this project. The grant agreement was strictly a planning level grant, so project development all the way through the design phase. I think next slide. So here's the list of the projects that are specifically located in Garden City. These are in addition to the projects that Christy previously displayed for you. Again, these are focusing predominantly on pedestrian, bicycle safety, and connectivity. A few to highlight is the 38th Street. We are looking to get a pedestrian crossing, a signalized pedestrian crossing across Chinden Boulevard for connectivity on 38th Street. 40th Street will have sidewalk connectivity and fill in some gaps and enhancements for pedestrians. 43rd Street, similar to 40th, looking at pedestrian enhancements and filling in some sidewalk gaps. There will be a pedestrian hybrid beacon or a signalized pedestrian crossing at Euston Road in 43rd Street. 50th Street, we are looking at a small sidewalk gap fill in and then some crossings across 50th Street, not Chinden Boulevard, but across 50th Street. And then Kent Street, over by the fairgrounds, looking to get a multi-use pathway in from Chinden to the north on the east side. And then Glenwood Street, which is probably one of the more complicated projects in this group, is to get a multi-use pathway up Glenwood from Chinden Boulevard up to Mountain View Drive. That will also tie into a project which is technically located in the city of Boise, but it will tie into the Glenwood connectivity, is pedestrian enhancements along Mountain View Drive. And then another project is to get some bike connectivity along Fairview Avenue, where the connector connects to over by the old Joe's Crab Shack up to Orchard Street. So to get some connectivity for pedestrians along that stretch from Orchard Street down to the bench towards the river. So, go ahead, turn it back over to Christy.
So the last slide is just a brief list of our scoping efforts. So every year, in addition to the development of the integrated 5-year work plan, our group also does what's called a scoping effort. And that's where, before a project really can make it into the integrated 5-year work plan, we have to evaluate it for feasibility, cost, what needs to go in there. It may look like a very simple sidewalk project, but we go out and there's actually irrigation relocation. There's major utility relocation. Maybe we need to do some additional infrastructure. So that's what our scoping effort does. It really dives deeper into those projects so we get a more identified cost and feasibility of a project. And then the purpose would be then those hopefully then roll into the integrated 5-year work plan. That you may not see these in this iteration, but we would look to hopefully add them in the future. So we do have 6 projects identified here that we're doing that. We've got a project on 45th, Adams, crossing at Allworth and 50th. And we do have a concept or a consultant we have under contract right now who's working all of our scoping projects as we speak. We also have Mountain View, Mitchell to Sunderland. It's that weird little curve thing connection that we can't, a lot of topo issues with that one. We also have Chinden, and I have 32nd or 33rd. It's one or the other. We're working with ITD and the city on the best location for that. There was also a request from the public and the city for a crossing at Chinden and Millstone. That also would have to be done in coordination with ITD. So these are just some items that we have on our scoping effort. Next slide. So just next steps in the integrated 5-year work plan process. So we're going to be heavily into the project prioritization. And what that is what we took the last year. We have specific criteria that we judge these projects that are not in the plan to give us an idea of what is highest ranking. Are they along school routes? The cities are asking for them. Are they identified in a neighborhood plan? Is a sidewalk gap? Or what are they? There's all these criteria that go into either a community programs project or a road and intersection project. So we will be doing that over the next 2 months. We have over 1,000 projects that we need to do. I'm not 100% sure we're gonna get through all of them, but we're gonna do our best to try to get as much as we possibly can done. Looking at that initial draft release of July 19th. So again, we'll notify the city as soon as that draft is out. There'll be a PIM, a public information meeting, to talk to the public about that as well, where you'll get to see what we've come up with and give us some feedback on what you'd like to see. And so then we'll just stand for any questions that you have. Thanks, Christy. Thanks, Brian. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Like it was my fault for not getting it.
No worries. We got through it.
Earlier.
We better need questions.
I just have one quick question, Brian. So you obviously mentioned the RAISE grant is a planning grant, but can you describe really quick if there are going to be additional opportunities for us to apply for actual construction?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so it's a planning level grant for all those projects listed. As we progress and develop some of the projects, we'll seek, additional federal funding, hopefully through the similar grant program for different components of those projects. So yeah, the plan is to continue to seek additional funding.
Thanks, Brian. Okay. All right. Thank you, team. And then the next one I'm sure you guys are excited to hear about is the update on the Apple maintenance complex. Welcome, Ms. Jennifer Barringer.
Thank you. Madam President, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Council members, I'm Jennifer Barringer. There we go. I'm Jennifer Barringer. I'm the Deputy Director of Maintenance for Ada County Highway District. And in addition to talking about Apple Street Yard, I'm also going to talk a little more detail about some of the other bits and pieces that are growing for us, our other facilities, because really everything is kind of connected in the big picture of things. So first, as was already mentioned, Franklin Traffic Operations Center the design is nearing completion. It's in the process with getting the building permits. Their director mentioned that they're going to be breaking ground in June. So the expected completion for that new traffic operations center would be summer of 2024. And once that's complete, the group that's over across the street for the Adams Yard then relocates to that new position. At Ustick and Apple, big picture, we're doing the bid right now for our construction management general contractor. Just this morning, we had a pre-submission meeting with potential bidders. That'll close on May 3rd. We are actually a lot more ahead of schedule. 30% design was planned for August, and we're actually much closer to having that completed. So that's why we're moving quickly to get a CMGC on board so that they can be tied in at the 30% design concept, and then they'll run all the construction management for us as both of those yards are built. At 100% design completion right now is scheduled for May of 2024. As I mentioned, the architect's been able to make quick progress, so with any luck, we'll be able to slide that forward on the schedule as well. Once we have our design completed, we're looking at a 5-year phased build, so potentially 2028 is what we're looking at, and we'll work very hard to keep that timeline. Both the Ustick and Apple yards are designed together, so you'll see a lot of similarities between the two yards. We're building all of the capabilities at each location. So over at Adams and our other facility that we have at Cloverdale, they're not identical. We have some functions at one and some at the other, but with our two new sites, each of them will be full components for the maintenance yards as we build those over time. There are site-specific design layouts for each location. Our Ustick yard is a little bit closer to water, so we have some constraints there with floodplain that we're working toward. And then the Apple Street yard actually has a road that kind of runs through it. Just very interesting concepts that they're working through on the design layout. And I'll show some images of those as well. And then also the timeline for each yard is, they're each going to different cities for approvals. So as they go through the planning and zoning committees and through all the approval process for design, those timelines might diverge. So as I kind of lay out our schedule, they're right in line with the programming and verification, which we've completed, our schematic design, which is ahead of schedule, and then whatever happens with each of the cities kind of informs what the schedule is going to look like at that point. but both of them are scheduled for about spring of 2024 for 100% construction. Starting with the U-stick yard, just kind of concepts for what the buildings are going to look like. That's been one of the challenges that we've been giving to our architect, is try and make the concepts for both locations meet what both of the cities want, so that we only have to design once and then you build twice on 2 different yards. So it's been like, which is going to face north, and what do the windows look like? So there's been a lot of that. But the U-stick yard is 23.7 acres. We'll go to the next slide. And this is the summary of improvements. As I mentioned, new buildings for all of our maintenance functions at that location. The benefits are that we're building to the immediate need, but we're designing for a scalable size. So we'll build for what we know we're gonna need in the short term, but then leaving enough space as we design the yard. So if we have to add on to the buildings in the future, if we need, 8 more bays for sweepers, that kind of thing, that we have some scalable space. That's one of the limitations we have in our current locations, is we just can't build anymore. We've maxed out the land. And then as we're growing toward, in the U-stick area, just the growth of everything with the populations and being able to respond quicker for snow operations or any other kind of emergency operations. Moving to the apple yard, you'll notice the buildings look alike. I mentioned that. They're designed in the same timeline and the same concepts. And then just kind of the generic layout, some new, just really interesting challenges that we have with that location, with how we're placing all of the bits and pieces. Next slide. And you'll see similar things here as well. The buildings will be the same as what we have for the U-stick site. Again, building to immediate need, but saving the footprint space in case we need to expand. And then as we grow, as Boise grows to the east and to the south, that gives us a little bit better response times in that area. Both the apple yard and the U-stick yard, estimated cost from our architect is $25 to $30 million to build each of those locations. You've seen this slide before. It's been slightly adjusted, and I know you can't really read it from where you are, but this really shows how everything dovetails together. So as the, I don't have a pointer on this, do I? Okay, so on the top line, it just shows the Franklin yard as that's getting designed and full operations in 24. Thank you. Then when that happens, people can kind of move out that way. I haven't mentioned the U-stick road widening. That's a considerable component to our timeline for building the U-stick yard. We can't start building the yard too far ahead of the widening. We want to make sure that those kind of happen in concert. That's something that we agreed to with City of Meridian, to make sure that we don't start our operations out there before the road is widened for the extra road traffic that would happen out in that direction. And it's sorely needed anyway. So U-stick's yard, as we start construction and initial operations, we'll be able to move some of our functions out of Adams out to there as well. And we're growing right now. Right now, our U-stick maintainers that we're growing for that capability are co-located with our Cloverdale site. So we're quickly running out of space there as well. So we're trying to get ahead on buying the equipment and getting the people on board, so it's a good phased timeline to bring on the people and the capabilities as the U-stick site builds up. Apple site is the same kind of schedule there, and then you can see how what we're doing here at the Adams yard dovetails with that as well. So over across the street, you've already seen what's going on with the Reed Street realignment. So that's already in design and started to move forward, and eventually we'll close where the Reed Street is now, so that'll be realigned, providing beautiful access to the park at the end of the road there. And then it will allow us to square up the property and kind of clean things up a little bit in that case. And then eventually, mark it for sale, and then all the relocations start to fall into place. So a lot of dominoes taking effect on the timeline. And that's really where we are. So as everything's starting to near completion, things start to fall into place, and a lot of moving parts. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, Council.
I don't think so. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Very concise. Let's get it done.
Okay, last but certainly not least, welcome, Ms. Jenna. Your clicker away?
Oh, it wasn't working, okay. Madam Chair, Mayor, Commissioners, and Council, thank you for having me here today. I'm Jenna Thornborough. I'm Garden City's Development Services Director, and I'm here to speak to you a little bit about our comprehensive plan. Next, please. A comprehensive plan provides a vision for a city, and the city is required to have all ordinances that are compatible and follow that comprehensive plan. The background for Garden City's specific comprehensive plan is in 2006, there was a major overhaul, and during that major overhaul of the comprehensive plan, ACHD was heavily involved. There were several presentations to the committee that was drafting the plan. And then in 2019, there was a deep look at the comprehensive plan again to address what had been already completed and further refine the direction and the vision for the city. And then in 2021, we're currently utilizing the 2021 comprehensive plan. But really the only change in that plan was to allow for the fire district, North Ada County Fire and Rescue, to have impact fees. Next, please, thank you. When people think of comprehensive plans, they tend to think of the future land use map. This is Garden City's future land use map. There are some neighborhoods or some areas that the comprehensive plan looks to preserve the neighborhoods, and then there are other areas that the comprehensive plan looks to allow and facilitate some growth. And certainly some of the neighborhoods are a little less urban, and some are looking to be much more urban in nature. Next, please. There's one area that the comprehensive plan calls out that is of specific interest to the commission, and that is the Adams Yard. In the comprehensive plan, the Adams Yard area is designated as a future planning area. And within that, there are some things the comprehensive plan looks towards. Opportunity to open additional access to the public to the river. Regenerate the site to allow for the highest and best use, as well as looking at how to integrate a higher intensity use into the existing neighborhood. The image that you see up there is actually from a 2015 U of I project that was done, and it shows just an example. It's not an adopted plan, but an example of how some of that connectivity, so Reed Street connecting through and allowing for the connectivity also through to Adams Street, while trying to be minimally impactful on the adjacent neighborhood. Next, please. The comprehensive plan also identifies some goals. The Garden City Comprehensive Plan identifies 12 goals, and at least 11, if not all 12 of the goals are affected by the transportation system. And the reason that I think that is if you have the analogy of a human body as systems within a city. Thank you very much. So you have your respiratory and your circulatory system. If one of those systems isn't aligning with the other systems or is out of whack, then the entire picture might be struggling a little bit. And so really the transportation system affects every single goal. Ranging from the city's ability to evolve as a destination and urbanize to facilitating affordable housing. With that being said, there are some goals that are almost directly connected to the transportation system, and such as Connect the City. Similar to the goals, the objectives and action steps that are identified in the plan, there are a wide range of these objectives and action steps that are directly correlated to the transportation system. And you can just read a few of them up there if it's not too small. Those might be pretty hard to read. But for example, develop new streetscapes that are distinctive to Garden City's built environment. It's noteworthy that most of Garden City, all of Garden City really is infill development versus greenfield. And so there are some constraints that I'm sure you're aware of, such as most roads being 50-foot right-of-way. And so a small right-of-way trying to get a lot of things in. Beautify street sidewalks with landscaping, trees, and public art. Create a vision for the design of all streets consistent with the city's urban vision, et cetera, et cetera. There are other adopted plans that stem from the comprehensive plan. For example, the sidewalk policy, the transportation needs plan, the Garden City original town circulation network plan. The sidewalk policy is easy. This is actually in Boise, but there's some nice trees that show the trees buffering the sidewalk. And Garden City's ordinance requires that there is a treed landscape buffer between the sidewalks and the travel zone. And the sidewalk policy just is a policy on how to implement that ordinance. The Garden City Transportation Needs List is a holistic transportation look at Garden City's transportation needs. It doesn't focus in on ACHD or ITD or Garden City or VRT. It's looking at all the different agencies and the different needs that are identified there within. It may have some specific needs such as local road connections, ideally are at signalized intersections at arterial for safety purposes, to an integrated bike system, or very specific needs such as connecting a pedestrian pathway across the bridge on Arnie Lane so that individuals don't have to go into the travel lane. And I think that that's one that the Commission's well aware of. And then the last plan to speak to you about is the Garden City Original Town Circulation Network Plan. And that plan was done, actually funded by ACHD in 2009, and specifically looked at the eastern part of the city. And it noted that the block sizes are too large and affect the viability of motorized or non-motorized travel, excuse me. It also indicated that the pedestrians should be buffered by the landscaping zone, so the sidewalk should be. It noted that a further dive was needed for drainage and right-of-way constraints within that part of town. It's also notable that the 36th Street design came out of that planning effort. One thing that we've noted as a city that wasn't identified in that plan, but is critical, is that those additional connections are also needed for fire access. And so as you get to certain densities, the fire department is going to need a secondary access. And so secondary connections are very important for that as well. So in a nutshell, that was hundreds of pages of planning documents distilled into just a few minutes. Some of the pertinent takeaways on how the ACHD and Garden City can work together to implement these plans are to identify safe and comfortable accesses. Again, it would be beneficial if we can find ways to get all cars to enter into arterials if there's a left-hand turn needed at signalized intersections. Safe and comfortable bicycle and pedestrian facilities, including crossings, which we've heard a lot about today. Additional connectivity, again, for that fire access, pedestrian and bicycle usability. And street trees. Street trees are all throughout the comprehensive plan and our other planning documents. And they really do facilitate the city becoming a destination location, facilitate land use values, code compliance, etc. And we certainly look forward to working with your staff for any win-win solutions that would best benefit both agencies. And thank you, and I stand for any questions.
Jenna?
Not gonna ask her any questions.
Oh, you're not going to?
No, she said that's condensing a lot of things in just a few minutes.
What was the year again that you published your comprehensive plan?
Madam Chairman, or President, Mayor, the last iteration's 2021, but really the bulk of the last work was in 2019.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, that's the end of our our items on our meeting today. So I just wanted to say thank you again. Thank you for the staff and your excellent presentations. I hope we meet again soon. And yeah, travel safe in this crazy weather out there.
Thank you.
And I'll go ahead and adjourn our side of the meeting.
Okay, council will stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.